Good morning and welcome to my single case analysis presentation. My name is Douglas Finelli. The sample that I have from the data subset of the 5th grade class is sample student number 2. The demographic information and background that I have on this student is that they are a 5th grade student. Race and ethnicity is of Hispanic descent. The student has no discernible or applied student disabilities that we have knowledge of. They do have a limited English proficiency, and they are a part of the free school lunch program. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at different sets of data that this student has tested for. The first one that we're going to talk about is the FSA data description. The FSA stands for the Florida Standard Assessment. It is a criterion referenced scoring system. It measures students' percentage of correct answers and provides students with a specific score which is unique to them. That score is then grouped together against all students to put them into a range of 1 through 5 in this that you see in this chart. The intent of the test is to measure the skills and knowledge that the students have mastered by the end of the school year. Levels 1 through 2 are considered to be below the cutoff point for proficiency, while levels 3, 4, and 5 show that the mastery of content has eclipsed the level that would provide them with graduation on to the next grade. It is a summative assessment, which means that it is provided at the end of the year. It is given at the state level, and it is aligned with state content and level standing. It measures the students on an annual basis on their overall proficiency over a long timeline. The second is the STAR data description, which is the second test that we have data for. The STAR test is a norm referenced test. It measures students' achievement by ranking the students. The scores are given as a rank in comparison to where they fall against similar students. This is given as a percentile. It is an interim assessment, which means that it is given on a more frequent level than the criterion-based tests. It is given at a rate of 3 to 4 times per year. Its intent is to identify gaps in student learning to help predict how the students will perform on the year-end FSA test. The data scores are provided in real time so that teachers can quickly adapt and personalize their teaching instruction to address any of the learning gaps that these tests show. The last assessment that we're going to look at that we don't have individual data for today is the formative assessment. This is the things that you're familiar with. These are the daily classroom assignments that the teacher gets that you get score reports from on an ongoing basis, such as tests, quizzes, projects. They're linked directly to the student's learning experience on a daily basis, and it assesses students' mastery on a continual level. This data is used by the teachers to modify their lesson plans on a week-by-week basis. Now let's look down at the sample data that we have for student number 2. This is the ELA breakdown. In the year 2017-18, the FSA data score for this student was 310. That gave them an achievement level of level 2, one number underneath the corresponding cutoff level for considered proficiency. In 2018-19, we saw an increase of 16 points in this score, which also bumped them up to a level 3, which gave them the minimum criteria in which we look at to consider mastery and advancement. The STAR reading rankings are the percentile, again, of how they have done in comparison to the other students that are in the testing data set. In August of 2018, this student was in the 48th percentile. In December, they were in the 32nd percentile, and in April, they were in the 49th percentile. In math, in 2017-18 FHSAA developmental score was a 335, putting them well above the cutoff level of level 2 and putting them in a level 4. In the corresponding year, we saw another increase of 10 points in the developmental score, still leaving student number 2 at a level 4. Our more continuous and repetitive rankings on the STAR report shows that this student is performing very well in the areas of math as indicated by an August score, putting them in the 78th percentile, December 77, and April 75. Now, what does this data interpret? Obviously, we know that this student is an English as second language student that doesn't have optimal proficiency in the English language. So our expectations need to be corresponding to the fact that these scores will probably be lower than the norm. And that's exactly what we have in this situation. Student number 2's limited proficiency remains a concern in regards to the ELA overall proficiency. Although at this time the student's number 2's scores remain in the acceptable range for us to consider promotion on to the next grade. The FSA ELA scores have improved, as we talked about, over the course of the year from a 310 to a 326. The achievement scores have also garnered that person the ability to move up to the next level ranking, which is a level 3 ranking. The STAR reading and rankings have fluctuated over the course of the 18-19 school year, although score fluctuations seem to probably be considered maybe an abnormality. The August scores again were 48, December was down to a 32, and in April was up to a 49. What you derive from that is probably one of two things. Either the December score was, again, an anomaly in which the student was hungry, didn't sleep well, not in a good mood, didn't take the test as seriously as they had in successive other classes, and or the formative assessments that the teacher changed after the December score of 32 got them back up to the level that they needed to be at, because ultimately at the end of the STAR rankings in April, we see that the student had an acceptable amount of retention on everything due to the fact that their overall end of the year FSA score increased and moved them up to a level 3. So the retention is there, even though we see a significant drop off on one STAR report. Student number 2's math data interpretation. Student number 2's English proficiency does not seem to be a concern when it is applied to the mathematical arena. The FSA math scores have improved over the course of the year from a 335 to a 345. Achievement level scores have kept this person consistent at a level 4, which is far above what is considered to be the baseline level 3, in which is required for advancement to the next grade. The STAR math rankings over the course of the 18-19 school year have stayed consistent and have established a benchmark of right in that 75 area when compared to other students. We would like to see an increase in these numbers over time. Hopefully more data will suggest that we are making incremental additions to their mathematical proficiency. Student number 2's ELA recommendations. Students' limited English proficiency, again, remains to be a concern and should be continued to monitor closely, as scores are still low on the lower side of the proficiency benchmark of a number 3 on the summative assessments. The formative teacher assessments should be monitored closely to ensure that the interim assessment fluctuations do not continue to persist, and hopefully that this was just a one-off in August. At this time, number 2 is tracking on a proficiency level, which will garner them advancement into the 6th grade. Some of the things that might be considered is to add the resource teacher to all future communications, establish quarterly teacher conferences to review any things that are going on, and additionally, potentially investigate the student joining any after-school programs that may be available to help emphasize some of the ELA skills in continuing to increase their proficiency. At this point, the recommendations for math are pretty small because they are tracking appropriately. At this time, the performance is above average in math and no significant adjustments need to be made at this point. Both the interim assessment star rankings and the summative assessments of the FSA developmental score are presently at levels above the minimum requirement for entry into 8th grade. Thank you very much for watching my data interpretation of sample student number 2. I look forward to your creative feedback. Thank you.